He rails against Stage Green for wanting to level all hierarchies. And he says that there are natural hierarchies and hierarchies that are important. And he criticizes Stage Green for demonizing all hierarchies as being oppressive and just all about power. And he counters that by saying that the majority of hierarchies are not corrupt, they're not oppressive, they're not about power, they're about competence. So what he means is that if you go to work and you have a boss, chances are your boss is not your boss because he's some sort of power-hungry tyrant who domineered everyone in the workplace and put himself at the top and crowned himself king, but rather he got promoted from within because he was the most hardworking, the most loyal to the company, and has the most experience and takes on the most responsibility. And therefore, he's your boss because he knows more than you. He's willing to take on more responsibility than you. He's willing to work longer hours than you. And therefore, he should get paid more than you. That's only fair. That's how he would portray the situation. And that's generally true, I would say. But the way that a Stage Green person would counter that is by saying, yes, that's generally true, but that's only true maybe in 80% of the cases. Let's say 80% of hierarchies are actually valid and genuine, based on competence and merit, and they don't need to be destroyed. But that still leaves 20% which are corrupt. 20% in which the person holding the position of power is only holding that position not because he's the most creative or the most selfless or the best qualified, but because he's an asshole and he's entitled based upon inheriting it from his family or something like that, or just by playing manipulative political games. And honestly, there's a lot of truth to that. There is maybe 10 or 20% of people in positions of power who only got there because they are sociopaths. And sociopathy is actually a very effective strategy for gaining lots of power and wealth and sex and fame. And the epitome of this is, of course, Donald Trump. What is Donald Trump? If you look at him objectively, he is not qualified to do almost anything. The only thing he's good at is spin, bullshit, and con artistry. That's his skill. But that is not a legitimate skill. That's a corrupting skill. He's not actually competent at anything he does. Every single one of his businesses fails, including his presidency. He's not competent at governing. He's not competent at managing people. He's not competent at hiring people. He's not competent at finding loyal people who have a high integrity, because he has none himself. And so because of this, and yet in our society, the way our society is structured, he was still able to rise so high and achieve so much and get hundreds of millions of dollars. Well, I mean, he inherited $450 million from his daddy. Is that truly competence? That's what the progressives would say. And here Jordan Peterson has a problem because he doesn't sufficiently acknowledge that a significant percentage, maybe up to 20% or even more, of our hierarchies and our social systems are corrupt in this way, and that this hurts a lot of people down below. Jordan Peterson portrays it as Stage Green wants to destroy all hierarchies. And maybe a few radical and dumb Stage Green people do want that, but the majority of Stage Green people do not want that. If you look at the way that the Scandinavian countries are structured, there's still plenty of hierarchy. You're not getting rid of hierarchy anytime soon. That's not something you need to be paranoid about. But we do want to level some of the bad, corrupt parts of hierarchies. We did that in the past. For example, there used to exist monarchies. Now they're almost all gone. What happened? Well, we recognized that that was a corrupt hierarchy. It was oppressing lots of people, hurting lots of people, and we rebelled against it collectively as a society, and we said no. And today we're happier for it, right? Do you want to live under a monarchy? Do you have a problem with a monarchy? Then you got a problem with hierarchy. And this isn't just about government. It's also about institutions. It's also about academia. A lot of academia is corrupt. Like the professors and the administrators of many universities, they're not there because they're the most intelligent and competent people. They're there because they're the best at bringing in business, at doing marketing, at using shady manipulative tactics through corruption, through just family lineage, through their wealth that they inherited, through the last name that they have. A lot of the Ivy League schools are all about that. It's all about this sort of legacy model. It's not about truly which students are the most intelligent. It's really like getting into Harvard. You'll have a better chance getting into Harvard, not if you're more intelligent, but rather if your daddy went to Harvard. That's how it works. And if he can give them $1 million donation, that's how it works. So is that a competence hierarchy? No. Fuck no. That's really corrupt and it's not healthy for our society. That's what Stage Green is concerned about. And Stage Green is also concerned about the influence of materialism in our culture, especially money and politics, the way money corrupts everything, the way that you can just buy anything you want with money, including power, and crush people underneath you. See, Stage Green, to understand it, you have to radically expand your sense of empathy and compassion for other people and even animals, for that matter, which is why veganism is very prominent at Stage Green. Because you expand your compassion, you start to empathize with the suffering of others, the suffering of the poor, the downtrodden, the marginalized, the minorities, the third world countries. You start to care about these things. You want to help all of these people and beings. And so you become more open. And you become more sensitive to how the capitalist system is rigging the game in such a way that it becomes very difficult to succeed or advance yourself as an individual. For example, a Stage Green person looks at the healthcare system in America, sees tens of thousands of people dying unnecessarily, not because they can't afford healthcare, but because our healthcare costs are so much more than they need to be compared to other countries. Like in Europe, like our prescription drug costs, a drug that costs in Europe $10 might cost $1,000 in the US. And the only reason that is because of the healthcare cartel or mafia that has been entrenched and established in America, purely for profit. Now, we ask ourselves, is that a healthy way to structure society? Is that a fair way to structure society, where just because some giant multinational pharmaceutical company has billions of dollars in the bank, it can exploit, it can buy politicians, bribe them to change the laws, change the tax system such that everything advantages that company becomes a giant monopoly, buys up all the smaller companies, jacks up the prices on all the drugs, and then your mother who has cancer can't even afford to pay for her cancer medication, and then she dies. Is that a society you want to live in? Of course, the answer is no. Do you want to live in a society where, for example, a giant chemical company has so much wealth and has monopolized so much of the market? It has so much power that it can buy its own senators. It can pay those senators to deregulate chemical regulations. It's then allowed to dump metric tons of mercury and lead and arsenic from its chemical production facilities directly into streams and lakes and ponds and oceans, from which your fish and your food and your water comes from. And then your kids drink the water supply into which was dumped arsenic and radioactive materials. Upstream, they dumped it, and then it went downstream into your water supply. And then your children drink this, and then your child develops a mental disorder like ADHD or autism or some sort of retardation or autoimmune conditions and disorders or cancer. And then your child has to live with that, and then you have to care for that child for the rest of your life. Is that a society you want to live in? The answer is obviously no. But the problem with Jordan Peterson's politics and with conservative politics is that they don't acknowledge this problem.